Hello, my name is Christy Rose Muir. I am a multi-dimensional spiritual being having a human experience, and like so many of you, I have been waking up to who I really am. This process has been unfolding for many, many years, and there have been various stages of feeling forward movement and also feeling kind of stuck, and even like I was moving backwards sometimes. But right now, at this time on our beautiful planet, I feel it's more important than ever for those of us who have been having awakening experiences to share them. I like the thought that you might find me and that you might feel resonance with some of the things that I have to say. And so I've been having a lot of fun creating some videos, really doing it for myself so that I can affirm the person that I'm becoming, so that I can document my own awakening and I can feel the resonance of the things that I know are true, even if not everyone around me is on the same page right now. So my intention for speaking with you right now in this moment is to give you a brief overview of where your power really lies. Because what I'm seeing when I do tune in to the mainstream media and the news is a lot of effort to get you focused on issues. But the back and forth conversations, the confrontation, the conflict, the animosity, the arguing over policies, over history, and over the meanings of things, this is not where we find our solutions. So this video is about breaking down some of the misplaced power dynamics that we're seeing in our mainstream media that's being put in front of our faces every day, and to help to remind you where your power really lies. One of the things that prompted me to create this video particularly is the second video that I watched about a so-called Karen being caught on video and being called out by basically the entire world. And I felt really called to put out a message and to let everybody know that what you're seeing when you look at these Karens, these so-called Karens, this is not an empowered person. I know that it has been satisfying and gratifying on some levels to have video evidence of the ways that people mistreat each other, and specifically along racial lines, to have someone to point the finger at and say, do you see this person is the problem? Because here it is, you guys. The feeling of disempowerment that you have is not because you haven't yet been able to convince those who have power over you to give you your power back. The feeling of disempowerment that you have that's causing you to want to march in the streets and make a big noise and make a big fuss about things, it's actually because there is no one outside of you that you can point the finger at and say, this person has taken my power away from me. That doesn't exist, you guys, okay? The main reason that that is true, and I'm coming from a spiritual perspective, if you want to get in the mix of the politics arguments, if you want to get in the mix of identifying with a construct of race and then arguing about race and racism, what I have to say right now is not going to make a lot of sense to you. You're going to think that I'm skirting the issues, that I'm missing the point, because you're concerned about being right about a certain issue. But I'm here to tell you that an individual can only see their self projected out onto the world. I'm going to say that again because it's true for everyone. An individual can only see their own self, how they have valued themselves, projected out onto the world. An individual can only see how they have valued and identified their self, projected out onto the world. This means that anyone who can look out into the world and legitimately feel as though they see inferior persons walking around, or people who are in superior positions of power walking around. This means that they are only seeing themselves projected out there. It means that someone who sees inferior people out there actually feels inferior. Somebody who sees superior people out there, they feel these conflicts and power dynamics within themselves. okay? This is not an empowered person. This is not an empowered person. This is a disempowered human being that you are seeing who believes that their power lies in trying to micromanage certain dynamics, put someone below them, or feel a sense of righteousness by identifying other people who seem to think themselves to be superior. Do you understand this? You cannot see anything out there in the world that you do not feel about yourself. This goes for anyone who is a quote-unquote racist, who looks down on other people. And this also goes for anyone who has identified. It doesn't matter whether it's me identifying as a victim as a woman, me identifying as a victim as a person of color, me identifying as a victim of somebody whose voice just somehow doesn't get heard. It does not matter. Any time that I place myself into a position that is superior or inferior to another person, it means that I have a conflict inside of myself. It means that I can't feel my own wholeness. It means that I don't really feel empowered. I promise you, you guys, as fun as it might be to have this social media phenomenon of being able to record people behaving badly, post it online, and have the whole world, layer judgment upon this person, this is not a real solution. I really hope that you can see that. And I'm adding my voice to the chorus of voices on this planet that are starting to recognize that victimhood is a flawed premise. So I'm going to tell you more about why that's the case. So here we go, you guys. Power. Where does power really come from? This is the question that most people are not asking themselves. And I'm going to skip a couple steps here because in some of my other videos, I take you step by step along the journey of understanding spiritual logic and how you have an inner guidance system that is letting you know moment by moment if you're following your own path of empowerment or not. So the steps that I'm going to skip here, I'm going to take you all the way to the punchline. You are God. God is not outside of you. God is not some nebulous entity that's sitting back with arms crossed, hoping you figure it out because it put a lot of effort and energy into making you, so you better make him happy. That's not what God is. Like I said in some of my other videos, I'm taking you on a step-by-step journey for you to tune into your own guidance system so you can know what's really true for you. But here it is. You are God. Every ounce of power, the creative power of the universe. Look at this place, you guys. Do you see this? Do you see where I'm standing? Do you see these trees that have been around forever? Do you see the intelligence in this life? Do you see the creative power just bursting out of the earth? All of this power, it lives in you. And it's been waiting for all of human history. This creative power that lives inside the human being has been waiting for each individual to recognize that they are themselves an expression of this creative power of God. It is available to you in every moment, right inside of you. It's not outside of you. And if you are looking to a person like a Karen, or if you are looking to a system like the criminal justice system, like law enforcement, like the government, or any other system to give you your power, you are looking in the wrong place. And here's my problem with all of this. It sets up a dangerous precedent. Because once you get someone else to change their behavior to make you happy, you have convinced both yourself and that person your power lies in them. And so you can never truly find your power again. You're going to think every single time that something happens in your life that doesn't make you happy or doesn't seem to reflect who you want to be, you're going to think you have to go and find someone to point the finger at and say, you are the cause of my suffering. You need to change who you are. That is the ultimate disempowerment. What happens as it's happened throughout history? Because here we are again. even though we had a civil rights movement, even though we had Rodney King, even though we have so many beautiful people of color in positions of power and prominence in our culture, we still see these same systemic issues. We've had uprisings before. We've had protests before. We have intelligent, articulate people who are explaining that it makes no sense to have systems that have this kind of injustice built into them. And yet, here we are. In 2020, here we are again. Why is that? It is because the premise that someone else or some system or some organization can have power over you is the flawed premise that has disconnected you from your power from the beginning. That's it. If you get the system to change a little bit, because let's just face it, the system changing a little bit is all we can really expect from demonstrations and protests. How long can you really keep this up? You cannot keep this up forever. People will turn their attention back to their own day-to-day survival, the day-to-day tasks of their lives, and this will die down, and the system will remain intact. Are you seeing this? Meanwhile, taking all of your energy and all of your focus and taking it out to the streets, and maybe getting a few symbols like some Confederate statues taken down, maybe getting a few people fired like these Karens, or corporate heads and CEOs who happen to say the wrong thing like all lives matter, which is obviously true. Other than these kinds of changes, we're not going to see a complete overhaul of the system based on these demonstrations and protests. Now, I'm not anti-movement. I think that there's a lot of healthy aspects to demonstrations, but when we rely on protest and demonstration and these kinds of movements where we have identified an external source of power that we think we have to reclaim from someone else, there are absolutely limits to the kind of change that we can see from these kinds of actions. Right now, at this point in history, it's really important for us to understand where our power really comes from. So I'm going to introduce you to a concept that exists in science as well as in all of the really pure and accurate spiritual systems that I have studied and played with in terms of practicing with in my life. So science says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. When does that reaction happen? It's simultaneous. A famous example is that of a bullet being fired from a gun. When does the kickback that the person firing the gun experience happen? It happens right then. Right when the bullet is fired, the gun also moves with equal force in the opposite direction. So this principle of physics is also present in our spiritual reality. What do I mean by this? I mean that any time that there is an action in our society that creates a problem, the equal and opposite reaction happens simultaneously. What does this mean? It means that problem and solution exist at the same moment. The problem is just easier to see. The problem usually takes all of our attention exclusively, and we've forgotten how to access the solutions that already exist. Like I said, another time I would love to break this down in more detail. But for now, I want to see if you can just grasp this concept because it's important. It's important if we want to rise out of the dynamics of us against them, of one person better than the other, of trying to reclaim our power from each other, because that's not where our power is. The problem and the solution exist simultaneously, just like in nature and in science, action and reaction happen simultaneously. So where do these solutions lie, you guys? Where are these solutions to these problems that are right in our face? Well, I'm going to tell you. They're born into our beautiful children. Have you ever had your breath taken away by the stunning, vibrant life and intelligence staring back at you from the eyes of a child, and perhaps one that can't yet formulate the words that we use as adults to express ourselves? Have you ever had that experience? I know I'm not alone in this. I know that so many of us can look into the eyes and the hearts of babies and children and see so much potential, but those babies are not able to yet express the knowing that is latent in them. It's innate. Every human being, no matter where they are born, no matter what the color of their skin, no matter what opportunities their parents have, or if their parents are present or not, every single human child is born activated. All of their DNA firing, their nervous system firing, their intelligence ready to evolve and expand itself into a matrix of solving problems on this planet as part of the creative process of life. It's actually what we're here for, you guys. We're here as creators, creating problems and then discovering the solutions as a joyful journey of exploring this three-dimensional matrix that we created. Okay? But here's my point. Our children are born with the solutions to all of our problems vibrating in their DNA, vibrating in their cells. And without explaining it too much, I'm going to posit the fact that each soul, which has no color, chooses their specific circumstances before they're born in. Yep, I said it. We choose our parents. We choose the town we live in. We choose the color of our skin. And we know full well the kinds of opportunities and challenges that are awaiting us in our incarnation. Forgetting is a part of the game, you guys. But even though we consciously forget, our cells remember. And the spiritual part of ourselves that doesn't come all the way into this body, our soul does not come all the way into the body, okay? Most of us remains in a broader perspective that can guide us because it can see the bigger picture. Again, this is a subject for another video, but for now I want you to understand that every baby is born into a context, and their cells, their DNA, and their spiritual wisdom understand that context completely. So the solutions that this child needs to solve all of their problems, to face all of their challenges, and to change the face of the world is already built into them when they're born. But what happens? What do we do? What do we do to these beautiful, bright, creative beings that are born with solutions into our world? Instead of recognizing that we have just birthed solutions onto the planet, we indoctrinate them into the problem. Instead of resonating, vibrating, feeling the aliveness of the solutions to all of these problems that seem to circle around race, but they don't. It's really consciousness. But instead of vibrating with the solutions, we train our young people, we train our children to vibrate with the problem. Right? So how many parents do you know who believe that it is their responsibility as a parent to inform their children of all of the difficulties, of all of the obstacles, of all of the people who are not going to see them for who they are, that they're going to encounter in their life? And conversely, how many parents do you know that take every day to celebrate the fact that this child has solutions that were born into them, that if they can just empower this child and connect them to their own inner guidance system, their own ability to discern not right from wrong, but right from left, which is my path of empowerment through this life, not based on a system, not based on what somebody else might want to give them or take away from them, but based on the fact that the creative energy, look at this forest, you guys, look at it, look at the trees, look at the life force. There are so many creatures, there's so much variety, there's so much power and energy in nature. It's us. That's what we are. How many parents take every day to celebrate the life force energy that's born into their child? No, they don't do that. They train the child to beware of the problems that exist, of the challenges that they're going to face. We call it tough love, or we call it being real, whatever it is. Most of us have been indoctrinated. We've been trained to think of ourselves as something other than the force of life itself. In one way or another, whether you're a Karen, or you're a person of color, at some point you have been trained away from your true empowerment. And then the question becomes, What are you practicing in your life? Okay? So how many of us wake up at the beginning of a day and just assume that what we have to do this day is try to fit ourselves into the system, try to survive the system, try to somehow live a life that fits into the system even if it doesn't really fit with us? What have you been practicing? So I'm going to leave you with a couple of how-tos. And the first one I'm going to give you is meditation. So many teachers talk about meditation. Hopefully they're practicing it too. Do you want to know why? It's because when you meditate, there is a space that opens up between your thoughts. And as you practice that over time, there's a space that then opens up between you and your thinking. So what you start to realize is how many of the thoughts that you think on a daily basis that aren't yours. How many ideas you've been identified with. You've been making yourself and your life conform to these ideas, but the idea isn't yours. What you also start to notice is that every thought has an emotion that goes with it. And as you widen the space between your thoughts, and then you widen the space between you and your thought process itself, you start to recognize that neither are you your emotions. And so right now, what are we seeing on this planet? We're seeing a lot of people having an emotional reaction, wanting to go out to the streets, point their finger at someone and say, you're responsible for my emotion, and I won't be satisfied until you change so that I can feel better. Well, if you were to practice meditation, you would realize you've been identifying with someone that isn't you. You've been thinking thoughts that aren't yours. And you've been feeling emotions that aren't yours either. They're not you, they're not yours, and therefore to take action based on those emotions, or to expect someone else to take action that's gonna give you your power back somehow, based on those emotions, is totally off base. It's a flawed premise, you guys. And the practice of meditation, over time, consistently, I've been meditating for about 20 years now, and I'm never gonna stop. Over time, consistent practice of meditation, it will free you. It will make you see that your thought process isn't you. That the concepts that you've been fed, they are not you, and they are not yours. That the emotions that you've been using as the basis for your action, that you've been reacting to and expecting others to react to your whole life, that's not you, and they're not necessarily yours either. And the final thing that meditation starts to do for you is free your imagination. Because if you have been digesting the ideas and then having emotional reactions to ideas that aren't even yours, what does that mean? It means that your imagination has been trained into a very narrow range. It means that you've allowed yourself to be trained to believe that there are only certain circumstances, certain possibilities that could bring you the power that you're looking for, the opportunities that you're looking for. That's not even your real power, okay? So another thing that meditation is going to do for you is it's going to pull back the curtain on this whole illusion that there has ever been a system working for anyone, okay? I promise you that there are people who have the jobs that you think you want, who have the bank account that you think you want, who live in the house that you think you want, and have this elusive external type of power that you think you want. Oh, those people are miserable. Those people are not empowered. Just remember the Karen that I pointed out at the beginning of this video. This is not an empowered person. This system has disempowered the people that seem to be surviving and thriving in the system, as well as the people upon whose backs it seems to be built. Do you understand this? If you don't, it's because you haven't been practicing being who you really are yet. You have been practicing reacting. You've been practicing surviving. You've been practicing conforming. And you haven't yet realized that your own imagination, your own thought process, your own emotions are yours. They don't belong to someone else. But as long as you let something outside of you determine what you think about, therefore how you use your imagination, and therefore how you feel about your life, you can't have your power back. Okay? Meditate. Do it every single day. I promise you, you'll get to a point where you'll recognize that you are a free, creative being. But as long as you're waking up and just churning in the same old thoughts and having the same old emotional reactions and having the same narrow range of your imagination, you will not feel empowered, I promise. The last skill, tool, practice, process that I want to share with you before I close this video is how to know yourself as the creative power of love itself. How do you know yourself as the creative power of love yourself? Have you been practicing it? What if you were to practice knowing yourself as the creative power of love every single day? What might your life look like? Would it be different? I bet you it would. So how do you do it? Well, you use your imagination, which if you practice meditation, you allow to be freed from the concepts that others want to impose upon you to use as the building blocks of your life. Okay? This is your creative capacity. If you can't imagine it, you cannot experience it. So you use your imagination to conjure an image of an energy of love that is you. And you sit still and you practice absorbing it into your body. You practice absorbing it into your mind as you quiet your mind. You practice absorbing it into your emotions as you let them settle, because you're no longer just churning and spinning on the conflicting ideas that society wants you to digest every day. If you practice this, I promise you, you'll get to a point where you recognize, oh, this is who I am. I am love. I am creative love energy. I am like this forest. I am like this green vitality bursting from the earth. That is me. I am power. I am love. I am creation. I am creativity. But you have to practice it. Every day that you decide to get up, try on someone else's thoughts, become agitated, and take action out of that agitation is a day that you've chosen to be disempowered. And every day that you wake up and you decide to claim your faculties for yourself, you reclaim your mind, you step back from your thought process, you step back from your emotional body and recognize that it's been reacting to these thoughts that aren't even yours. Every day you practice doing that is a day you're choosing to practice your power. And you have to practice it, I promise. As long as you think that there is someone else or some system outside of you that you have to get your power back from, you're looking in the wrong place. It's in you. Okay? My name is Christy Rose Muir, and I am in love with humanity. I'm in love with us, you guys. We're amazing. Practice it and you will know. Namaste.